Okay, this is Steve calling in from MCFLS. We're going to go ahead and get started. This session is Advanced Create Lists and Sierra Statistics. The way it's going to work today is we've got a fairly small group on the line here, so if you have any questions, you can use your microphone at any time to ask a question. However, in the past, it's worked best if we use the chat window in the lower part of your console, your GoToMeeting console, where it says type message here. You can just type a message there, and I will generally see it. If I don't, I will definitely get to it. I usually try to peer over there every once in a while. So if at any point you have questions about anything I'm covering, feel free to just chime in at any point. We have plenty of time for that. The session basically is going to be divided into two parts. One is an Advanced Create Lists part, and I'll go through exactly what we're going to cover. And then the other part is Sierra Statistics, which is a module or function within Sierra that we can use pretty easily. So we'll cover it. It's going to be about half and half time. I'm hopeful that we're not going to take the full 3 hours here. So hopefully we'll get you off early, since unless there's a ton of questions, and then we'll just kind of play it by ear. So to get started here, first off, I wanted to mention that I do have a website available for this topic, Create Lists and Statistics. It's at www.mcfls.org/createlists, the address on your screen. And I would encourage you to, even as we're talking about the session here, is to follow along and actually look at the resources on that page. I'll just take a quick look at it here on my screen. I've updated all this information for Sierra. In addition to doing quite a bit of work on this Advanced Create List session, there's been quite a few changes with the advanced portion of Create Lists and what it's allowing us to do or search with. So we do have a 50-page Create List manual that I've updated with all Sierra screenshots. We have the intro class that we just did a couple weeks ago, all the PowerPoint slides from there, the updated version of Advanced Create Lists and Sierra Statistics, which we're going to cover today. Those PowerPoint slides, they both link directly to the Google Drive version of the PowerPoint, so you should be able to print them off from there if you need to. Also, we have a Playing with Matches guide. I'm going to click on that real quick. And what this is, and we'll cover this in depth later in the session, is a kind of a blow-by-blow walkthrough with using regular expressions in Create Lists. All this information is relevant and still works. And it's been put together by Richard Jackson, who is pretty well known in the innovative circles for dealing with regular expressions, and has done this class, Playing with Matches, for a long time at innovative conferences. So we're hoping to get him next year, actually, for the Willia group that's meeting at Marquette, we believe. So anyway, he'll be in town. Hopefully you can take him in person. The other resources on this page are a number of examples using Create Lists. Each of these links, if you click on them, go to an answer that has a screenshot and basically a walkthrough in creating the list. So each one of these was based on some question or some topic that came up during previous sessions regarding Create Lists, and I've just incorporated these into a page that we can use. These other resources are not quite as useful, but this is the original Create List training manual. This is basically a Millennium-based training manual that I based our manual off of, the newer one off of. So a lot of the topics were the same, but this one's basically brand new compared to the old one. So anyway, this page is available for you. Also on mcfls.org, underneath the continuing education section, there is a YouTube video for the intro class, and I'm actually recording this session as well, so in case you wanted to refer back to it, you would be able to get to that. You can follow along at your own pace if you like to. So this session is being recorded, and we'll include it on the CE section of MCFLS.org. Okay, so for the advanced crate list portion of this session, we're going to look at some of the things we weren't able to cover in the intro course, more or less the index searching. That's one of the options you have in addition to searching by range and by review file. We'll spend some time talking about Boolean searching using the advanced area and the advanced keyword searching. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about appending and merging, and then as a result of that, you normally, when you're combining two files using append or merge, you normally have to dedupe your files as well in order to get rid of duplicate records. And then the majority of the time after that we'll spend with advanced things we can do with regular expressions. So that's the playing with matches area. So we'll talk a little bit about regular expressions and how you can use them with crate lists. So the first section I wanted to talk about was using the index search with crate lists. And in order to get up to speed of that, we'll have to start creating a list from scratch. And I'm assuming that you have some basic understanding of how crate lists work. We'll go into that. We'll open my Sierra session here. I'm just going to select an open review file. I'm at 95 here. And so I'm going to click on Search Records to start my review file search. And we'll just give it a name here. And your stored record type really determines what index areas are open to you. So if I leave my store record type at bibliographic, it means we're going to be looking at bibliographic records, searching on fields off of that. You can change this from the two we usually use here, our range and review. We change this to index. That's going to give me all the indexed fields that are available within the bibliographic record. If I change this to item, you'll see call number is still there, but some of these other fields will be different. Let's see if we can. We'll change this, give you another example here. Change this to patron. And you'll notice that the stored record type patron here changes everything from the bibliographic fields to patron barcode, name, all of these other fields here that are indexed within the patron record. Now, there's a couple of pros and cons to using index searching. Honestly, I don't use the index searching as much. Since it is searching an index, you can get quicker results. That's really the benefit of having an index, is everything's kind of there already to be searched. It's great for ranges of numbers. If you look at the form that we're using here, you can actually search on a call number range. So if I could type in something to the effect of, let's see, 500 to 599. But that's not all I can do. I can search that range, but because I've got all these criteria windows here open, I can actually limit this further than just the call number range. So the call number range is just kind of limiting it to a certain subset of the database, and I can type in something like item location has 14, and I could even limit this further if I wanted to look at a particular item type, item level, whatever. you're looking for. In this case, we're just looking at the index for call numbers. Item, I should say here, I should change this. Sorry. So we're looking at item call numbers between 500 and 599.99. It's real important to put that .99 back here, or else the database won't pick that up. So anything after 599, you really need to put in this last section of numbers after the decimal point to pull in everything. That'll make sure everything's included. And this is really looking at subfield A. So nothing in the fiction call number area is going to be pulled up here. It's all going to be in whatever's in subfield A. So that, of course, has a lot to do with how well these records are coded. But generally, that's all you're going to be getting from a search like this is anything from subfield A in the call number. And then we've got it limited to greenfield items. Now, if we click on search here, this will take a couple seconds or so to bring up, but I'll show you some examples of what we're actually retrieving using this type of search. So you can see how quickly that went through the entire database, index call numbers. Anything owned by Greenfield with that range is going to come up now. Now, if we look at the actual records themselves, let's just take a look at bird watching here, number 4 on the list. This is a good example. Hopefully you guys can see this. We know that it's owned by Greenfield. It has 14 in the item location field. But it also, you'll notice that the indexing started with a 500 level call number, so a Dewey number starting with a 500 in that 500 range. But it omitted anything in that fiction or subfield F area and just started with the 500. So that's one of the reasons why the subfield F is so important to our system, is that it omits things like J or fiction or mystery from being indexed in that call number index, and allows us to do searches like this that can grab those records or retrieve those records. We look at a couple other ones here. This one's got ref in the subfield F, but you can see subfield A includes 530, which is in our acceptable range for the search, and it's also owned by Greenfield. So it's another accurate record. Exit out of here. Honestly, other than doing a call number search, I'm really not sure how useful using an index search is going to be for you. Call numbers might make it worth your while just to use it, but I don't use it all that often. Might be a quick way to do a call number search, though. The other fields other numeric fields that you may have an interest in looking at. We change this to bibliographic. It's good for ranges of numbers. So if you're looking for a range of ISBN numbers, OCLC numbers, and again, a lot of these are unique. They may not have any. A range is not particularly useful, but if you know your particular record is in a certain range, you can look for it there. Record numbers, but I'm not sure how useful that is either, because you can do a range search just as easily with that. So they're just another option to do this. I think the best way to describe index is that it's great for call number searches and not a whole lot else. Okay, now we're going to move on to keyword searching using Boolean operators. And before I get into that, I want to show you where that area is located here. We've looked at the range, which is the entire database, essentially of record numbers. If we're looking at items, you can see all the item records. Search against that. You can search against a review file, existing review file, and have your search applied against that review file. We've looked at the index. And now the last one that's available to us, and there's a lot of options here, is an advanced search. And that basically is what you're doing here is applying an advanced keyword search against the database. So you can use a lot of the same operators or functions that you would use in a keyword search in Create Lists. So it's just kind of bringing in that advanced keyword searching to Create Lists. So if we look at our slides here, we'll talk about the typical Boolean operators. These are used quite often, not only in library world, but across any kind of database that you're working with. In Sierra and in Create Lists, these are the Boolean operators that will work in an advanced search. So you can use the AND operator for something like Patterson and Cross, if you're looking for that. The shortcut you can use instead of the word AND is the ampersand symbol. And so fractal and geometry will work just as well as Patterson and Cross. The same basic function. The OR works the same way. So if you're looking for iPhone or iPad, canines or dogs, the shortcut works the same way for both. And lastly, we can use a not a not operator, and usually combine that with AND. So Mercury and not the planet. So if you're looking for Mercury, the car, and not the planet, or Mercury, the substance, and not the planet, you could use that kind of search within Create Lists as well as bridge and not music. So you can see we've combined the shortcuts for and not together, and they work just as well. The one thing I would caution you, if you're using these type of operators, is that you need to make these operators capitalized in order for them to work correctly. You'll get varying results, but it's best to capitalize those. I know that if you don't capitalize them, for example, in Encore, which does use advanced keyword searching, it will not work, or it doesn't work as effectively as you think. It is a more literal interpretation if you don't capitalize. Let's do just a quick search here. If we do Mercury and not planet, and I wanted to limit my search to items owned by South Milwaukee. I would just put that in, or if I wanted to do any kind of other limiters besides just this keyword here, it's usually best if you're looking for your own items here. You can type in this search and then click on search here. And this will take a few seconds to kind of loop through the database. It usually doesn't take too long. Okay, so we found 106 items owned by South Milwaukee that have Mercury and not the word planet in the title. So you'll see Festus and Mercury. I have no idea what that is, but it is owned by South Milwaukee. And if we look at the okay, so it's the cat's name is Mercury, so that's why it came up in the search here in the note field as well as the title. But you don't see the word planet here anywhere. Now you'll see references to space things here. Almost Astronauts. This again is owned by South Milwaukee. And you'll see references to Mercury somewhere here. Here's a note field with Mercury 13 in the note field, and there may be other areas here. But you don't see the word planet anywhere, or at least you shouldn't, in any of these indexed fields. And we're talking generally about author, title, subject, and note fields when we're talking about a keyword search. Okay, so that's just a real quick overview of using the Boolean operators within a keyword search. However, there's a whole bunch of other things you can do to kind of narrow down or simplify your search if you want to. A lot of this stuff has actually changed quite a bit since we last did an advanced session. It's because of the changeover that we did from Millennium to Sierra. So a lot of the operators that used to be involved here, like before or after and within, are no longer used by Sierra, although Millennium did use them with their version of the advanced keyword searching. So a lot of this is simplified. There's a lot less that you have to worry about or think about when you're doing your searches. The one thing that has changed a bit is adjacency. So when you type in a word or phrase such as player piano, it implicitly inserts the and operator between each word, so player and piano, in a search expression. So if you search for player piano and piano player, it's basically searching for player and piano or piano and player, and will return identical results because they're both ANDed together. It's going to look for instances where the record includes both terms together somewhere. They don't have to be right next to each other. There is a way to get around that if you're looking for exact matches, and that's enclosing the terms in quotation marks will force an exact match. So player piano and piano player, if they're enclosed in quotation marks, will return different results. So that might be important to you if you come to that at some point. You may need to search for an exact match, and you don't want to find all those other results in your search. I think Kathy had a note here. Oh, okay. So there was a, we go back to our list here. I think what was happening is that we looked for Mercury and not planet. Kathy mentioned that it said planets. It did get picked up in that search. So there may be some semantics here. I'm maybe looking for, we didn't say the plural. That may have picked it up anyway because of that. That might be why that record got picked up. Let's see if we can find it here. No, it's not terribly important, but I think I understand why that got picked up. Okay, so let's go back to our slides here. So in addition to using Boolean operators by themselves, like cat or dog or something like that, what you end up with here is just a number of combinations you can put together. So you can use parentheses with Boolean operators. So in this case, where we have industry and Milwaukee or Madison, you can do a search that will find industry and Milwaukee together, as well as industry and Madison together. So it's basically creating a set within this parentheses, almost like a mathematical equation where it's finding all records with Milwaukee or Madison somewhere, as well as industry. So it doesn't have to have both Milwaukee and Madison, just one of these two terms and the word industry as well. So it's typical, like nesting process here with these terms. And then you can also combine things such as politics in Mexico and not new is kind of self-explanatory, but searching for anything with politics in Mexico, but anything with the word new in it will be rejected. And then down here I wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between these two terms, and we'll just do a quick search here so I can tell you what these look like. So if we're looking for, like all the James Patterson books with any references to Alex Cross within the bib record, there's two ways we can go about it. One is, and these are totally different searches, and you're going to get different search results based on what you put here. But based on what we've seen above here, if you include Alex Cross, now let's just do it. Let's go ahead and just type it in. Do the first one here. I'm putting in Alex Cross in parentheses so that it keeps that together, you know. But typically what it's going to be doing is looking for Alex Cross, both terms somewhere within the vicinity. So it's going to look for Alex Cross. They don't even have to be next to each other. They just have to be somewhere in proximity. But those two words have to be somewhere in that record, as well as the word Patterson. So if we do a quick search on that, and you'll see why this is important here. We have 187 records that match that criteria. So if we look at, let's just take a look at the third one here. You'll see that Patterson appears in the author field, and Alex Cross also appears down here, but it's not in the same order that we had put in our search terms. So it doesn't really matter what order those search terms are in if you put them in parentheses like that. So it's going to find those subject headings, in other words, that include the word Cross, comma, Alex. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, but that comma is treated as a non-functioning entity, so it's basically ignored. So you end up with Cross and Alex. So we got 187 results from that type of search. If we do that search over again, and then type in Patterson and this is going to be a completely, well, not completely different search. You're going to have crossover between the two searches, but this is far more limiting because it's going to look for this exact phrase within the record. So this exact phrase and the word Patterson have to occur in the same record in order for it to be trapped by our search. So if we go ahead and do that one, you'll notice that it went down from 187 or so to 126. Take a look at this one. So Patterson is in the author field. Totally different areas here. Patterson is in both author and title. Alex Cross appears together as we had put it into our search in the note field. But you also notice that Alex Cross also appears in a subject field. Basically our search ignored that part. We didn't even look at that. But as long as it appeared together exactly like we put it in our search with the double quotes, it's going to come up exactly the way we want it. And sometimes you may want to have that happen. But if you're looking for any references to Alex Cross, a better search or a more expansive search would have been the first one that we did that came up with 187 results. Okay. So let's go back to our slides here. Another thing you can do with the advanced portion of Create List is to use wildcards. So if you're looking for, perhaps a variation on a name, that can be a common search that you would want to find. You can use the question mark that will represent any single character in the specific position in the word. And you can use it after the at least two characters. So like a question mark, DERSON, would not work, but the one we have listed here, after these first two characters, you can start using that question mark from the D on, and it will work. Oops. And this has changed quite a bit since the last time we've done this presentation. You can actually use a wildcard character, the asterisk, which is pretty common for searching. This, we used to only be able to use the double quotes, or I'm sorry, not the double quotes, the double asterisk for doing wildcard searches or truncation. You can do something like this search, INTER asterisk, to find internal, internet, international. The only problem with that is if you do something that's very simple, like say, we'll just edit this and say cat. It's going to expand that search to basically be an OR search. So it'll find cat, caterwaul, catalog, and every variation up to about 1,000 or so, and then it stops. And if it finds anything after 1,000, it will give you an error message saying it just can't continue because the search is too expansive. So you want to add something like, something a little bit more specific so it doesn't find all those variations and order them together. This one would be pretty expansive as well, but it wouldn't be nearly as bad as, say, something like cat, where you've just got so many possibilities there. This last one is something where I did want to show you. This is another operator, another function that you can use with the advanced searching. This kind of replaces the within or near operators that we had with Millennium. We had this as well, but it was used differently. So basically this tells Sierra if I'm using this tilde sign along with a number right after my search, it's telling Sierra that it wants to find those two words within so many words of one another, where n is that number. So fractal geometry, it's got to find both fractal and geometry within 10 words of each other within the search. Another good example is Hillary Clinton. I've used that in the past. It needs to, in order for the record to appear in our search results, it has to find Hillary and the word Clinton within 3 words of each other. So you'll get Hillary Rodham Clinton, Clinton, comma Hillary. It doesn't matter the position, whether one is in front or behind, but they have to be within 10 words in the first example or 3 words. And note that both terms have to be within quotation marks, so you have to include it just like this with the double quotes. So if we'll do a search here for Hillary Clinton. So we'll look for Hillary Clinton within 3 words, both terms within 3 words of each other, and just do a quick search on that. Okay, so we found 250 results using that search. So let's go ahead and take a look at them. You see the first one here on the list is Hillary Rodham Clinton. So let's just take a look at that record here. You can see this would have been pulled up for any number of reasons. In the title field, it's got both those terms within 3 words of each other. Same down here in the subject field. In fact, Hillary and Clinton are pretty close to each other in this example. This is a Tipper Gore book. And then you've got Hillary Rodham Clinton in this area as well. Find another good example here. We also have Hillary Rodham Clinton here in the title, and just another example of the subject heading being used here. It doesn't matter what position these words are in, as you can tell here. It would have pulled up this record even if it didn't have this Hillary, Rodham Clinton in the title, because Clinton and Hillary are in the same field and they're within 3 words of each other. That's basically what you're looking for. And just a note here on this, that all of these characters are converted to spaces when you do a search. So that comma, in the subject field is converted to a space, underscore is converted to a space. All these characters are converted to spaces. So they really, unless you want to search for those characters specifically, you can't really do it. You have to put in an escape character, and we'll talk about that. You can use those with the matches regular expression. And lastly, before we move on to the regular expressions area here, I wanted to talk a little bit about keyword slices. I think this is actually something that is somewhat underused in our system. You can actually do this type of search within Encore. Basically, our keyword searching is made up of different sections. These are author, title, subject, and note fields. So most of your keyword index is made up of information from those areas. So the keyword index itself is made up of different sections or slices, and you can actually search those slices individually. So for example, we could do a search for author. And these aren't index fields. These aren't part of those like author index or title index, but it is part of the keyword index, just different sections of it. So you would search for Sawyer in the title slice of the keyword index and Twain in the author slice of the keyword index. So if we do that real quick, let's just take a look and see. I'll copy this. And we'll do a quick search against the database to see what that looks like. So you do your exact same search we did before with the advanced. So we're just limiting ourselves to those records here. So let's see what happened. We got 141 records that got returned. And this looks like a good one. Tom Sawyer. Sawyer is in the title area, the title tag here. So it's in the 245. And then the author included, let's see, the 700 had an added author for Twain, and that's why this one came up. Let's take another look. On this one, the author field actually includes Twain right off the bat, and then Sawyer is included in the title search. So it's just in case you're looking for an exact phrase or some kind of term within one of these fields, you can narrow down your search quite a bit, so that, for example, Twain doesn't show up in a subject field or Sawyer doesn't appear in a subject field. If you're looking for those exact terms in those slices, you can make it a lot more specific. And again, that works for all these different slices for A, author, title, subject, and note field. I should mention these are pretty much limited to all bibliographic records, in case you haven't noticed. I haven't really been looking at anything regarding item records or patron records when it comes to these keyword slices or the advanced keyword index as a whole. You're basically searching bib records. But you can do the same type of search in Encore and using the same operators. Okay, so now we get to playing with matches. As I mentioned before, this is something that Create Lists offers. It's a little different. Actually, it's a really cool thing that I use on occasion when I need to get a piece of information I can't get with the regular operators and fields that were given in create lists. So one of the important things that you need to know is that create lists uses POSIX regular expressions. There's different flavors of regular expressions out there, and Innovative and Sierra use the POSIX. So if you're looking for examples of how to do searches with regular expressions, you can look at POSIX. However, if we go back to our resources here, the one and only resource I would recommend you look at to start out with, you can go beyond this if you like, of course, but if you click on this Playing with Matches PDF, it goes through this this whole topic of using regular expressions in create lists in a lot of detail, and we'll go over each one, a lot of this in our session here right now. But in case you can't get to this recording, or if you just wanted something to refer to, this is an excellent resource, and I highly recommend using it and taking a look at it. A lot of the same things you'll see here, you'll see in other versions of regular expressions. Oops. So regular expressions often referred to as regex, just kind of a shortened word for that. It's a way to match strings of characters. That's basically all you're doing with regular expressions, but it allows you to, almost at the character level, to match things, match particular patterns that you're after. And a lot of things that we can do with regular expressions you just can't do with create lists, and that's why it's so important to go over it with you. So with regular expressions, it's basically using a special language. When you use this particular Boolean operator, and I'll show you how it works, it's looking for specific characters, and those characters have attributes that you can use to capture matches or look for patterns. So the first slide I'm going to show you here is part of that PDF file, but I wanted to go through each of these step by step because they're really important. They're real basic regular expressions that you can use anywhere within create lists. First off, before I get too far, I wanted to show you where that's actually located. So if we go to our test file here, let's just use ISBN as kind of like our search here. So we chose bibliographic records of type. We're going to search for ISBNs, and here's where you would search. You would actually choose the matches area. So it's R for matches, and then you would put your regular expression in this area, and that's where we're going to talk about right now. So all of these phrases or characters that we're going to use here are things that you can put in this space here under value A, and we'll run a couple of examples to show you. So one of the basic things with regular expressions is the dot character. A dot basically stands for any single character. So C.T for regular expression matches cat or cot. It could also match cut or any character. It doesn't even have to be a word. It could be CTT, could be anything. So as long as it's a character, alphanumeric character, it will match, and you put that in, it will match that string. Any characters in brackets are what's called a class. It's important to remember that however many characters you put between brackets only match one character. So, for example, if I put A, I, and E in brackets, it will match any single instance of A, I, or E. It's not going to go beyond that. So you can just consider this whole block here within brackets as one character. But it has to match either A, I, or E. This one is very common if you're looking for any kind of alphanumeric character, you can use A through Z, 0 through 9. Just combine them all together. You can use that hyphen to basically refer to this as a range. So anything between A and Z, anything between 0 and 9 would be caught by this particular match that you're looking for. And these are pretty basic, but I'll give you some examples about how that looks in an actual search. If you put the caret, or I'm not sure what you would call that, the upside down caret above the 6 key, this matches any single character that is not in the class. So basically is the reverse of this area that we just talked about. So if you put in the caret A to Z, 0 to 9, you'll match any character that is not a digit or a letter. So it just basically negates that character class. So it's looking for anything that doesn't match this. And these two down below here, the plus and the asterisk, those are extremely important because they can be combined with the dot character to find any number of matches. So here's a good example using the plus. So when we put this into, this is looking at, for example, a subfield A. If we put A0 plus 523, this will match A0 523. It doesn't even have to, it has to match at least one or more times. It'll do 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. All those will match. So it basically is a placeholder for the 0 at least has to occur one time and any time after that. So it could be 0 once or 0 100 times, and then 523. This asterisk is essentially the same type of search. However, in this case, the 0 doesn't have to exist at all. So whereas the plus demands that the 0 has to be there, the asterisk does not require that 0 exists. So it could match A523, A0523, and so forth. The only difference being that this one, the plus requires that the 0 exists at least once, and the asterisk does not have that requirement. A common regular expression you will see, and I use it quite a bit myself, it's very basic. You just use the dot and the asterisk together. That will match any number of characters in the string. And I'll show you why that's important. We have a couple examples that include that. So it's basically a wildcard that you can use within your string to match. I don't care what's before. Just put this dot asterisk in front, put in my search term, a dot asterisk behind it, and it will find that pattern match anywhere within that field. This is also something that's come up. I have an example, real-life example that uses this. But basically, you would use anything in these brackets, where you see min-max here. It matches the preceding character or group of characters at least the first number of times, this minimum number here, so 0 perhaps, and then a max. You can also specify a max number, so between 0 and 4. If you include one number and not two of them within the brackets here, that means it has to match that string exactly that many times. So, for example, here's a character class of 0 through 9, so we're looking for numbers, and it has to have a string of at least 4 numbers in a row. So it's looking for a 4-digit number, in other words. And nothing else. If it doesn't match that string, it will not appear. Now, what you have to be careful of is that it may match a 4-digit number, but also a 5-digit number and a 6-digit number and anything after that. And it's not going to match a 3-digit number or anything below, but it's going to match 4 or anything above. So you have to be careful in how you phrase your search, and I'll show an example of that. In fact, why don't we just go to that? If we look at, I ran a search previously to today. It's actually a search that Bob had me run at South Milwaukee. And what he was looking for was all of his Plessy barcodes at South Milwaukee, because they're doing a lot of weeding and they want to get an exact number about how many barcodes still have these older barcodes there. One of the distinguishing features with Plessy barcodes is that they all include 11 characters, no more, no less, and these are the old barcodes that we use. The current barcodes that we have 14 characters exactly. So there's only really two variations of barcodes, item barcodes in the system, 11 characters or 14. So knowing that, you kind of have to know that, so that's kind of important. I can show you my search query here. I found 29,000 of these. If I go to show info to show you my search query, this gives you an idea of the type of regular expression I had to put in here to make this actually work. First of all, I had to make sure that I was looking just at item records owned by South Milwaukee. And my item barcode, that's where I used the regular expression, was looking for a character class, so it was looking for numbers 0 through 9, and then the letter X. I just included that in case one of the barcodes had an X at the end. Sometimes that will happen. But it has to include that character class, and you'll notice my bracket here has an exact number of 11. So that's what I needed to do to find all of those barcodes. I'll talk about these other characters in a second because those are important, but I'll keep that up because we'll return to this. But that's what I needed to do to find exactly 11-digit numbers. And speaking of which, these other characters, these determine the beginning of the field position. So these always start at the very beginning. So if you're looking for a string that starts with a number 6, you would do something like this, where it's caret 6. This basically stands for the beginning of the field. The number 6 and then dot star. That will give you, we don't care what's after the 6. We only want it to make sure that let's just say call number, starts with the 6. And we don't care what's after it, so we'll put dot star to be a placeholder basically for anything that comes after the 6. That's basically what that means. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have the $, which indicates the end of the field. So we can anchor that so that whatever is previous to that $, is what we want to find in that field. So if we're looking for example, fiction in a subject heading or something like that, we could put in a dot star. We don't care what comes before it, but we want the field to end with fiction. And in order to anchor that, we need to put in that $. So we know that that's the end of the field. And what precedes it is fiction, and we don't care what happens before that. So that's basically what's happening. You'll notice that if we go back to the search here, I had to put in the caret at the very beginning and the anchor here for the end of the line, because I was finding, if I didn't put that in there, I was still finding 14-digit barcodes, because it would match 11 characters in a 14-digit barcode unless I put in the end, the anchor sign. So I just want 11 characters. That's basically what's happening here. And you'll notice this by trial and error. You'll notice that you're getting 14 character barcodes where there's only should be 11, and you just need to do a little bit of trial and error to get it to this point. And then you can save this as a saved search and then run it whenever you want to. I'll leave that up for the time being. So I have a couple of examples that I wanted to show you, some things you could do with regular expressions and create lists. First of all, it shows up as a Boolean condition. We've already seen that. So it's an operator. Here's another example. Item call number matches subfield F, and then F with the end, that anchor sign at the end. So what this does, let's just do that search here. We'll find we'll do this other search here. Use our test file. Okay, so we're going to leave everything as is, but we're going to change the stored record type to item. And we'll limit our search to items owned by Shorewood. And we're going to look for item call numbers. Use R for matches that have subfield F. And you could put in a capital F if you wanted to. You're just looking for the F call number. You don't want to see anything else. You don't want to see fic. You don't want to see fiction. You just want to see F. We'll explain how this works here. You notice how as soon as I released or focused on another area here on this window, all my characters were converted to lowercase. This is something new in Sierra. This didn't happen in Millennium, and I think it's more accurate in terms of the way that Sierra searches the database. It's case insensitive for the most part. There's a couple of exceptions to that rule, but this, for the most part, it's doing case insensitive searching. Let me explain a little bit about what's going on with this search. You'll notice that I have an anchor tag here, so I know that my call number is going to end with an F. So that's a given. We know that it's got to end with an F in order for it to be retrieved. And then in front of that we have subfield F. And I'm sure you're thinking, well, why isn't there a caret here at the very beginning here? Why don't we put this in here? And we probably could. That would be fine, but it's not necessary because subfield F is always going to be at the beginning of a call number unless it's a different type call number that you're looking for. Now you could put this in to be on the safe side, but removing that should find the correct records anyway, unless it's miscoded. I guess that's what I'm saying. So if we do this search, it's looking for all F call numbers at Shorewood. Okay, so we have 949. If we look at those records, you'll notice they all have subfield F with the F only. There's no fiction, there's no fic, nothing except the F call number. And that might be useful for you if you're trying to do some kind of reclassing project with your fiction section or something like that. But you can use this for anything. Let's look at another one. All these are subfield F with an F behind it. And nothing else should be included in that search. There's another example. So just one example of a way in which you could use regular expressions. Here's a couple other examples. I have to admit, most of these examples are really useful for those of you who do database maintenance or cataloging. In fact, Richard Jackson's original presentation was focused on database maintenance. So he's looking for errors in coding or specific patterns in fields that he needs to correct. So a lot of those examples that you'll see in this handout are focused mostly on cataloging examples. So some of the examples he has is if you're in the bib record, there's a fixed field for country. If you're looking for all the records that have a country that end in U, you do have to understand that country is basically a 3-character fixed field. So let's just take a look quick here at one of them. If we go to a typical country, you'll notice that this code here is NYU, and all of these are either 2-digit or in most cases 3-digit characters that you can search on. So you don't care what the exact match is. You just want to find anything that ends in a U, and this record would come up in a search like that. You can also use the character class. We've actually already used this in our Plessy barcode search. This one would be searching for variations on the word gray and either wolf or wolves. So one of these, in order for it to come up in your search results, it has to have either wolf or wolf with the V, and the gray, either A or E. So it's just variations on those two terms. Here's an example of a really good way in which you can find errors in your coding. So in this example, we use the dot star. This is that wild card. And we could search for errors in our coding because in general terms, if you've got 2 subfield Bs in this case, we've got 2 of them in our search, those are generally, well, they're errors and they should be corrected. So I'm not going to run this against our database because I don't want to find anything right now. But generally speaking, you could do search on a mark tag 245 and use the matches operator to find B star, dot star, and then subfield B again, and it will find any errors in your records that basically should be corrected. Here's another example. You can find bad mat type codes. This is using the negative class. So let's just assume that all of these letters are mat type codes. So for example, A for book. There's a range in there. B, H for DVDs. All these would be valid mat type codes. We're looking for the ones that don't match that code. So we put in that caret in the character class with those brackets, and we can find all the errors in our records that have a mat type code that isn't correct. So that's using the negative character class. And then we've already looked at this one here, find call numbers only with the letter F. If we wanted to expand that, we could use something like, it's the exact same search here. Make this a little bit easier to look at. I'm not sure if they even have this. We'll just give it a try. Subfield F with mystery. We do the same type of search there. So we'll let that run. We may have to come. Yeah, it didn't come up with anything because it didn't have that character string in there. But you get the idea. You can put basically any kind of pattern matching in place using regular expressions, and it will work. There's a little bit of trial and error to this. You may not get exactly what you want the first time, but if you keep at it and you refer to this handout that Richard Jackson has, you'll really get the hang of it. It's really not as difficult as it looks, frankly. One thing I didn't mention, and I really do want to make sure you're aware of this. This is really important. This step 2 here is on page 3 of that handout. it's regarding how Millennium store, well, in this case it's actually Sierra, it's the same thing. Sierra stores mark variable fields. When you're searching for, say, a mark 245 field, if you don't specify a subfield, it will start with the actual number itself. So the start of the field position, that caret, starts at the very beginning of the field, which includes the tag number and any indicators after that. So the first 3 characters are the tag number, the second 2 are indicators, and then anything after that is actually the content of the field. So it doesn't start with A or the subfield A if you're only looking for the 245. I'll give you an example of what that looks like. So you can use the exclamation point field. This is comes up if you just type the exclamation point. Most everyone should see this. If you don't, I can get it for you. And here's where you can specify the tag, the actual tag number. If you're not, you want to specifically focus on a tag. You can use the 245. Let's just use that example, and then you can put a pipe character in. This is above the enter key, and then A. If I just type 245 and put in our matches operator, if I start with this caret, I have to put in 245 and then whatever I'm looking for, perhaps a subfield B or something like that that I'm after. So you have to take into account where, you know, the type of the field that you're actually searching on is going to be a little different based on this field here. So if I change this, let's go back here. And I put in subfield A, then it's going to start looking at my match starting with this area right here. So this first subfield delimiter, you have to include that in your search, but it would look something like this. So all this is a long way of saying just be careful what you're searching on. If you're searching on a subfield, then you can start with subfield A and then, you know, whatever author, whatever you're, or this wouldn't be author, it would be something like it. Something like that. If you don't use a subfield A, then you have to account for the fact that you may be including the tag numbers and the indicators within your search. I know that's kind of confusing. I haven't explained it terribly well, but if you just read this over here, it explains a little bit better as to how that process works. You're much better off trying to search off of a specific subfield rather than the entire field itself, if you can help it. And most people are going to be doing that anyway. Okay, so it is a little bit after 2. That's pretty much concludes the advanced portion, and what we're going to do now is move on to Sierra Statistics. And what we're going to do here today is, with Sierra Statistics, is to go through the process of actually creating a query in Sierra Statistics, see what the result files are like, and actually some of the options that you have in creating a statistical report. And then we'll talk about exporting the data and then managing saved queries. If we have time, we'll do some exercises, but the walkthrough that we're going to do is pretty much going to be the exercise, that we'll work with. So I don't have any slides for this, so I'm just going to go through it. Sierra Statistics is a little different than what you might be accustomed to using with Innovative. It is not, it's really good for fixed field counts or periodic reports. So for example, how many records are for titles in foreign languages. You can find statistics based on that. You can also do a cross-tabulation report showing map types per branch location. It's generally looking at your coding and how that coding is distributed within a review file, for example. And we'll take a really good look at that during our example. You can also find out how much of one type of item was, for example, cataloged during a certain time period, checked out during a certain time period. But I should warn you that it's Sierra Statistics, the statistics function, is not meant to be used for circulation statistics. That's not what it's there for. It does have some year-to-date circ information. Last year's circ information is included in some of these tables, but it's really grabbing the information at a certain point in time based on the records you currently have available. The difference between Sierra Statistics and the statistics you get from Web Management Reports is that Web Management Reports is recording this data through a long time period, and it's capturing snapshots every single day, whereas the Sierra version of statistics is not meant for that. It's just grabbing this information at a certain point in time. It also, Sierra Statistics does not really deal with variable fields except call number and order record paid fields. So there's really no variable field information you can get out of statistics either. The call number field is limited in most cases by our use of the non-standard Dewey numbers, like the fiction call numbers we've just been looking at. If you're looking for statistical information based on Dewey numbers, that's a different story. You can get pretty good information based on statistical call number table or SCAT table, but it's only for Dewey numbers. So if you're looking for anything outside of that, which is a great part of most people's collections, you're really not going to get a whole view of your collection using statistics. There are some libraries, systems that have actually gotten this to work with fiction call numbers, but they all need to be a certain length. So they can't be, these statistical call number tables are really meant for Dewey. That's really their primary purpose. And once you start adding fiction call numbers, they need to match almost that Dewey string where you've got 3 numbers and they're set up a specific way. That's the only way that statistical call numbers will work. And getting agreement among all parties was very challenging for this group that I'm referencing, but they had done that in the past. But it's difficult to maintain that because everyone has to be on the same page. Okay, so before we get started with the new query, I'm going to take a look at the statistical function here. Let's close out of here. Depending on your authorizations, if you don't have statistics, I can probably get that for you on your list of functions here at the top. But you would just click here once on the menu, and statistics will either be within circulation at the very bottom, cataloging also at the bottom, acquisitions also kind of near the bottom as well. And I believe Serials also has it. This may vary based on your library, but most everyone should have statistics available. So you click on statistics, and you see a whole bunch of stuff here. So let's just wade through this a little bit. What you see here on this first tab, first of all, this is laid out here. You notice that there are, instead of the tabs along the top, they now have these buttons on the side, just like everything else in Sierra. The first tab here is saved queries. So these are queries, statistical queries that people have saved to the database, and they'll reuse the same query over and over again if they have something very complex that they want to run. On the second tab, we click on this, you'll see all of the saved reports that people have run over the years. I try to weed these out as best I can, although there's some quite old ones here. I think I'll be weeding out some more of these. It really doesn't affect the space on the server as much, so I'm not as worried about this area. But you can see there's quite a few saved reports here already. When you run your report, your new one appears at the very bottom of this list, and sometimes it's hard to see it. It actually will be kind of hidden. It will move up a little bit, so you have to use a scroll bar here in the lower right-hand corner to kind of scroll down and see what your file is doing. As it's compiling, it will show a status of processing here, and then when it's complete, you can click on View Report. But let's go back to our saved queries, since that's the first area that we come across. Now, the first thing you want to do, you can run save queries here. We'll look at that in a second. But the first thing you want to do is click on New Query. It's one of these buttons here at the very top. And you'll see this query editor window. And this is where you're going to put all your information in. Now, before I get started, I should go back one step here and go to Create List. I ran a review file prior to the session here today looking at all Franklin items added in November 2014. So just all item records added by Franklin. They have to have been owned by Franklin, added to the database in November of 2014. So that's kind of like my base review file I want to use for statistics. We're going to use that as our example. And all I did for that was to find all items created between November 1st and November 30th of this year, and these items also have to be owned by Franklin. So that's our basic search here, and we found 876 items that were added to the database during that time period. So if we go back to statistics, go to New Query, what I'm going to do is just name our query here. We'll call it Franklin November items. And my saved query name, if I want to save it, would be this. My results file name can also be the same. I just have to use this arrow here. It basically copies the same title from the query name to the results file name. You don't have to save it as a query. In fact, the option is there not to have to do it. But if you wanted to save it as a query, you could click on this button down here after you're finished. In our case, we're not going to select the range of records or look at anything advanced like we've done prior to now. We're going to use our review file. So we're going to use our review file for the statistics. And I'm going to go ahead and find our Franklin items added to November 2014. It's one of the benefits of review files that you can use those to get statistics off of things that you have in those review files. So in our case here, we're using a review file. If we go to range, I can search on bibliographic records, the entire database. If I wanted to do a statistical report on that, I would probably dissuade you from doing something like that. But as I change the start number here, if I wanted to search for it instead on items, you'll notice that the item record numbers get substituted for the bivs, and our report on drop-down here changes because of that. You can also do the same here for the review file. If I go here, since my review file is full of items, it's going to report on items, but I can also pull out bibliographic information or patron information if I wanted to do that. We're going to leave it at item just to show you what that report looks like. The query type. Oh, just one other thing. Be careful about this drop-down menu here. In this case, it should work just fine because we're searching our review files full of items. If we go back to my slides here, the statistical function, and I don't believe they've corrected this. In create lists, you're limited to what's called the law of one hop. It means if you're searching your stored record type is item records, you can only search off of information in bibs, items, and patron records because there's a link between items and patrons and items and bibs. If your review file is full of bibs, you can't search on patron record information because there is no direct link between bibs and patrons. You know, patrons don't check out bibs, they check out items. But you can see all the links here. The problem with the statistical reporting here is that if we, let's just say, find a bibliographic. Fine, we'll just use a patron review file here. Yeah, I guess they've corrected this now. So before it was not changing this drop downs to reflect the law of one hop. So it was creating some problems in the past, but it looks like they've corrected it. Okay. The query type area here is probably the most important. The field statistics are your basic report. So it'll show you how many DVDs do I have, how many titles do I have in a specific foreign language, that type of thing. So that's the basic report. That's the one we're going to do for this example. However, there are other reports, more complex reports that you can use. The next option here is a periodic report. And since we're searching on item records, this information will change based on the stored record type that you have. But here is where you could search on a created date within a specific days. You know, if we had, you wanted to find out what was created within the last, you'll report on what was created in the last part of November, the last week of November. You could start with, let's just say the 23rd, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. Let's just start with the 24th. And by doing this as your starting day, and because it's days here, we would increase this to 7. So that would find any items, do a report on any items that were created within the last 7 days of November. Since we're already limited to November 2014, the periodic report doesn't really make sense for this particular example, but that's the type of thing you can do. You can find out what items, if you had a larger list, say all of Franklin items created in 2014, you could divide this by months. So if your starting month was January 2014, you could find out all a report basically showing all these items and how many of these items were created and in what month. Now it doesn't show you much more detail than it just basically groups them by month. But it's not a common report. I haven't really used it that much. One report I have used in the past is a crosstab. And this is where you can actually choose any two fields for your vertical or horizontal axes. So if I wanted to, say, find in this list here all of the item locks on the vertical axis and the level on the other axis, the horizontal axis, or something to the effect of, let's see, item type, you could create a report that basically is a crosstab report that would show you those, where all those items fell within that crosstab report. It's good. On occasion, I will do a crosstab report when I want to find out how many items. It's usually for like a item report, but it's like item loc and item type, something like this. I will use on a report for crosstab, but I haven't done one in quite a while. But that's something that you can use. That's open to you as well. Just a word of warning: the crosstab reports take quite a bit of long time to actually get going. So. In our example here, we're just going to do a quick field statistics report. It's the most common one, and people use these the most, I believe. The fast accumulation checkbox here, basically what this means is that it will not update the client with the status of the report until it's finished. Since our review file is so small, 876, it's going to take very quick, it's going to go pretty quickly. If you have, say, 100,000 item review file or 100,000 bid review file, it's going to take a lot longer to make that report happen because there's a lot of work it needs to do. You'll notice that there's also a split multi drop down here. This is really only appropriate when dealing with bib locations and fund codes. It's one of those things where in a bib record there can be more than one biblo code. It's usually multi. There's more than one. In this case, you could split the multi and actually list out each instance of where, for example, Shorewood appears either by itself or as part of a larger multi-biblo group. So it would split those out. So the resulting numbers from if you split it by multi, would actually be larger than the actual number of records that you have. So, but we use that for, on occasion, it's useful for titles added counts. We use that for statistics and doling out fees for libraries when we determine OCLC costs. That's one of the ways that we do is we split multi and find those, what everyone has actually added to the system. Okay, so at this point we're ready to run the report. Everything's here, fastest accumulation. Now you can save the query here. We click on that. It will just save it to the database and server, and we can run it later. We can schedule the query and just put in a time and date that we want that query to run. Now there's no way to really schedule this in advance. We don't have the product, but there's one innovative product called Schedule that we can use, but it's not something we currently own. But you could schedule this once to run, say, for overnight or something like that if you don't want to run it at this very moment. Usually what I do, though, is hit Run Query, and you'll see at the very bottom my report's running. And since it was a very short report, it completed very quickly. Up at the top here, I have a couple of different options. There are a few options at the top I really don't use very often. You can rename this results file if you want to. You can delete it, and I'll probably be doing a lot of deletions here. These two buttons here are probably the more common ones. You can actually view the query that you just created. So your query type is field stats, reporting on items. But most folks are just going to go straight to the View Report button. And here we're looking at our report for this particular review file. The header here you can modify, but generally speaking, you're going to keep this the same as just leave it alone. It will tell you if this is an older review file. It will tell you how many of these records have been deleted. Since we just ran it, there are 0 records deleted on the system. So it's not a big deal. But on the left-hand column of the left-hand side of the screen, you can select which report you want to look at, and then export that, whatever you want to get out of the system. In our case, we have all these reports on the fixed fields within the item record that you can look at and print off. So let's just say, for example, this is a Franklin list for items added during November. If we change this report to eye level, it will show you what reading levels have been added to the system. So we have 516 adult records. I'll just move that over so you can see that. 253 children, youth titles added or items added, and then 106 young adult. You'll notice that we have a code here with a dash. That is probably an error in coding. I hate to point that out to Jennifer because I know she's on the line here. But it's a good way to actually look at your records. If you wanted to collect all your records and look for the errors in coding, you can find them using statistical reports like this really easily. They come out pretty easily, and what you can do is then go back to your review file, sort on that field, in this case eye level, and then it would put the record that's in error right at the top, or the records that are in error right at the top. They would be sorted so you could be able to find them pretty easily and make changes then. You'll see a lot of this with like the region field in particular. Speaking of which, let's just take a look at that. See, we've got all of this is the item region field, and it's doing a statistical report on that. All these are Franklin except one for St. Francis, the outlier. So this is another thing where you would just sort on the region field, find the St. Francis item, change it to Franklin, done. So it's a pretty easy fix that way. So for a report like this, I think the most useful one to look at would be this one here, the item type report. You have other fixed fields here that you can look at, but most of these are not very useful. The loan rule, it just shows you at that point in time at which we ran the statistical report what loan rule was being used. You can use some of this information, but it's just a snapshot at a point in time. That's going to change. It could be changing right now as we speak. The status, same thing. You can see how many were checked shelves, but that's not going to remain the same. It's just going to keep changing as things are going on. So it's only a snapshot of your data. It's not live. That's what I'm saying. These statuses will not update unless you run the file, the report again. So yeah, the I-type report would be the one that I would probably focus on in terms of, and we'll use this one for our example, because it has the most variation here. These aren't going to change. These item types are going to remain pretty much the same. So on the column here on the far left-hand side of this frame, we have the I-type codes. So one being book, hardcover, adult, 3 week, so on and so forth, all the way down. And what's really nice about Sierra and Millennium, frankly, before it, is that in addition to the record counts that you get for each item in this list here, they also include the price field. So they basically a summary of the price field and the current renewals for those items, as well as fields like total checkout. Even with being added in November, you've already got 88 checkouts for these items. As you would imagine, they're probably pretty new. Year-to-date CIRC, and last year's CIRC is probably going to be zeroed out because they're brand new items. But this is the type of data that you can get out, and there's more than just the record counts. I guess that's what I'm trying to get after. There's also things that you can do to format this before you export it to Excel. First of all, there's a number of buttons up here at the top. So if you wanted to, for example, hide a row, I don't know, there's nothing here that I would want to hide, but let's just say that you can hide rows or columns here at the top. If you wanted to hide the I use 3 column, you would just select any cell in that column and click on hide column, and then would get rid of it. It's still there, it's just hidden. for your report. And let's just say that you don't want to look at last year's CERT because there is none. You can hide that column as well. But you want all the rest of these to be included in your printout. So if you leave it just as is, first of all, you can unhide everything by choosing this unformat, and that will get back everything that you just hid. So go ahead and hide those again. And then the other button here that you can use is export. So if you click on export, you have a number of different options here. I would suggest, just to keep it simple, to open all of your files in Excel. So we'll just choose the first option here, but you also have an option to open it in Word. Save it as a comma-separated value. If you have a large report, that might be another option for you to do. Also, save as tab text is another option. I usually use these two options if my report is really large and it would take a long time for it to be converted to Excel. Otherwise, if it's a table like this, I just open it up in Excel and it's pretty quick. You're always going to get this message here, but you just click on it, yes, and then your report will get populated into Excel with all the proper columns and everything. Now, once you have it into Excel, you can start messing around with sorting. If you wanted to sort on different columns, you could do that. Once it's in Excel, you can do all that a lot easier and work with it there. But all that data is exported right into here. And you'll notice that the columns that we didn't want are not included in the data. So they're still there in Sierra in this report. I can unhide them right here. But they just won't be exported as part of the data into Excel. So, as far as that goes, that's really all that I had to show you as far as statistics go. Did you have any examples or anything that you would like to see? Either with advanced create lists or statistics. If there's something that you'd like me to see, we can do a couple of examples. You can use the chat interface if you want to send that along. Okay, well, okay, Brian's got a question. Okay, this is a good one. Brian's got a question here, and hopefully everyone can see it. He says, "I'd be curious to see how to get a list of borrowers who owe more than a certain amount due to billed items." Sure, we can run it. Let's run that report right now. That'd be a good example. Let's do a create list using that. And then what you could do is if you wanted to run statistics off of that, Brian, you could definitely do that as well. So let's choose our test file here. And let's see, let's just make sure Okay, so let's focus on brown deer borrowers, maybe brown deer patrons who owe more than, say, $20. Something like that, but just as an example, and then you can use that as a test to do something else. You know, if you wanted to raise that to a certain amount, you could do that easily with the query. So, brown deer patrons owe $20 or more. So we're going to use patrons for that. So our stored record type would be patrons. That's pretty clear cut as to what we're going to use there. And then what we can do is just do patron. There's different ways you can go about this. You can either use the residence field, which would probably be my bet because that's pretty solid in terms of being able to determine residence. You could also use a P-type range if you wanted to do that, but I think residence is probably the easiest. So residence equal to 6. And because that's an exact, we're looking for an exact match, we can just put in 6. We don't have to worry about anything beyond that. And then we're going to append a line and say, and patron money owed. So this would be total money owed. It doesn't matter what they owe it on. It could be replacements, could be overdues. And then since it's a number, we're working with a number field here, we can use greater than or equal to. So we'll use that one. $20. Then we'll just put $20 in. You don't have to put the dollar sign in. It's just going to look for that number. And then we're looking at the whole patron database. It shouldn't take too long to run this, but this is the type of search that you can run. The other thing you can add to this, I noticed that your search was also looking for billed items. We could append a line here and also say, and one of the items linked to this patron, that's basically what we're doing here. One of the items linked has to have a status equal to N. So we're looking for brown deer patrons that owe greater than $20, and at least one of the items linked to this patron record needs to have a status equal to N, because the patron relationship to items is that there could be more than one item linked to that patron record. All it's going to do is find at least one item to match that criteria when you put that item stuff in there. So let's go ahead and run that search and see what we get. Okay, so we've got a patron list here. Let's see if we may have to go out of create list to actually see the items. There's another way we could do that, go straight to the items, but this would be a patron list basically. So you'll notice that our patron here has $40 worth of fines, and if we go into, I'm just going to copy the patron record number, go into circ desk mode. We could probably make this easier by just doing an item list and searching for the patrons, going the other direction. But this works just as well. Oops. I must have, oh, I'm putting the A in there, sorry. Okay. So one of the checked out items here is, at least one of them is in build status. So if you like, I can leave that search out there for you, Brian, and then you can use that if you want to, in your own searches. So that's file 97. I'll leave that out there for a day or two, or if you want me to, save that to the server, we can do that too. All right, you bet. Any other questions or things that you want to take a look at, or questions you had about create lists or statistics? And while I'm waiting for the any responses, I will mention also that we're doing next March. We're doing a introduction to Sierra SQL reports, and I've been working with that more and more. Basically, what that means is that we would have a class on getting direct access to the Sierra backend, at the PostgreSQL database that the catalog and the ILS use to produce records. We would have the ability to create reports and get data out of that Sierra Postgres database. And it's pretty exciting. There's a lot of stuff that we can do with it. Just to give you an example, since I've got that up already. Let's see here. There is. Okay. This is an example of a report I just ran. I'm still perfecting it, but basically this is kind of like that 20-plus folds report that we used to run for the system like many years ago. We stopped doing it. But this is actually a web page that's grabbing data from Sierra and pulling it into this form and looking at the number of holds attached to these records. So this is dynamic. I could refresh this page and it's going to grab the new numbers right off the top. So this is the type of thing, if you're interested in getting kind of more advanced information about how to get into the database and use it, what we'll do is have this class, and it's going to be held on March 4th. So there's quite a few days between now and then, but we'll send out registration for that. But in order for you to be able to get access to the SQL database, we're going to require that you do this course. And once you do that, you'll be able to run your reports at your leisure, and how many times that you want to do it. It's fine. But this is an example, one of the examples I'm going to use when in that class. But just so you know that there's much more than just create lists that you can use with our system now. Okay, so any other questions? Okay, if not, you can certainly refer to this page here, mcflis.org/createlists, or just let me know if there's a certain report that you need run. I'm happy to do that at any time. It's actually one of the cooler parts of the job. And I'd be happy to help, create a system that you can, use to run the same report over and over again. So if there's anything I can help you with, just let me know. But otherwise, thank you very much, and I hope you got something out of the session.